thank you so much for coming today. Let everyone at the table introduce themselves so I don't screw it up, and make sure that they're presented the way they'd like to be. And then we're going to have just sort of a broad discussion really about the internet, which is obviously such a huge thing to talk about, but just sort of how that relates to the art world today, how that's maybe changing, how it relates to us as artists, but also criticism. I think very informal, sort of casual discussion is the way I would like it to be, because I'm not intelligent enough to have a serious discourse about net art and post-internet condition. But if you don't mind introducing yourselves at the table, everyone.
Okay, I'll go first. My name is Bruneau. I'm based in Montreal and an artist in
We're Tough Guy Mountain, an art collective. Individually, I'm Pat Mcleod.
I'm Alex McLeod. I'm a visual artist that works primarily in media.
Okay. Oliver's trying to crank the sound a little bit.
Yeah.
So I guess when I was going through the different topics of discussion that we'll be going through over the next few days, as far as the internet goes, I started thinking first off about my own relationship to the internet, and as far as basically how, when you create work now, how the internet affects that. And I guess my first question to everyone here would sort of be, as far as being at the forefront of the relationship between internet and art, do you think where does Canada sort of sit on that? So when I started researching these different sort of the history, essentially, of Vera Frankel, a Canadian artist, kept coming up and up again. A work she did called String Games, where she basically worked with Bell Canada to create a sort of networked art piece. And then I guess I'd be curious to hear what you all think about as far as Canadian artists that are dealing with the internet. Where maybe geographically is the hot spot for working with that, or maybe there isn't geographically because it's 2015.
What do you guys think, Berlin?
Yeah, Berlin's the center of everything, I guess.
Yeah, it kind of seems like that.
Well, it's funny because it's still, even despite the internet, it still feels like there's communities, like there's still a pretty distinct community of people in Toronto who work with the internet, but there are also the boundaries between that community and the the wider net, internet-based artist community of the world is pretty fluid, and it's different from the 70s with Bell, when the artist you were mentioning, Michael, was working with Bell. That's like a Canadian-based company, but now it's not like those sort of relationships that are nationally bound don't have to happen anymore.
Yeah.
There are definitely some Canadian artists who are known throughout the world, or at least within the community. I mean, John Rathman, who just had a solo show at the Mac in Montreal. He's a Montreal boy, and he's well regarded. He's shown throughout the world. So that's one. I know that there's a writer at artfcity.com. She's the founder of that site. Patty Johnson, who is a well-regarded critic, and she's very, very vocal. She speaks about net art a lot, and digital art in general. So she's Canadian as well.
Jeremy Bailey.
Yeah, famous internet artist.
Yeah. He's teaching at NYU now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's doing a course there, yeah. I'm really jealous. I want to be in that course.
Yeah.
When you say internet artist, what do you mean? What is an internet artist?
Well, I mean, that's a very good question, and maybe that's something that we can kind of discuss, because, looking at the internet as a medium, so a place to, I guess primarily using the internet and all of its different aspects as a tool, just like a painter would use paint, so pulling from different elements online. So John Rathman, for example, will use an online community called Second Life in a lot of his videos. So he'll go into this, if you've ever played Sims, it's kind of the same idea from the little I know about it, but on a much broader scale, and then go in as a character into this whole other world and have these interactions that he then films and edits.
Yeah, so it could be captured from a net-based source, or it could exist on the net, who's the Chinese artist that sells sculptures made in Second Life? I like the art fair.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'm terrible with names. And then Yeah, I mean, if you made a website, that could be a piece of art. You could be a net artist, or you can reference net culture, and that's what primarily a lot of people do. Is that they may be net artists even though their work is in real life. You know, because it sort of references the vernacular that comes with the internet and like retro internet, a really quantifiable sense of what the internet was or is.
And it's like, it could be, the metaphor could sort of be that the internet is both like, it could be the paint or the canvas as well. Like there's some people who are just exploring the like aesthetics that have evolved on the internet, and then instead of actually like maybe using the like sort of software and the like the algorithms and the programmatic stuff that sits on the back end of the internet, they're creating aesthetic representations of like different cultural, I don't know, outcomes of the internet. Yeah.
Or even just the subject of the internet or aesthetics that pertain to the internet. There's a certain subset of work that it exists in real life, but it's absolutely produced with an aim to replicate a structure that's on the internet or a certain aesthetic. Thinking, for instance, locally in Toronto, although now he's in Berlin, David Haynes.
Totally.
So he doesn't really work on the internet as such, but he does take stuff from the internet. He downloads installation shots from various art galleries, edits out the work using the content-aware tool in Photoshop, and then he prints them as works in the gallery and installs them. So it's not really internet work exactly, but it absolutely requires the internet. It absolutely is built out of the internet and out of concerns taken from the internet.
Yeah. Oh no, it's an important thing we needed to kind of touch on. Speaking about David Haynes, that makes me think of R.T. Vickers and how, I guess, when I was considering all of this, it feels as though a lot of artists, myself included, are very much adopt this sort of post-internet condition where we accept that your work sort of primarily exists as an install shot. And so everyone is concerned with getting good install images because it's almost in the age that we're in now a weird sort of situation where maybe that's how your work exists. There'll be plenty of people who have never seen a sculpture I've made in real life but have seen a beautiful bright white gallery shot. How many artists do you think are out there that are sort of critiquing the situation, or do you think the majority are positive, or sort of? That's a bit of a vague question, I know, but I guess it doesn't feel like that many artists are negative about this sort of post-internet condition, because you just sort of have to accept it.
People, the idea of post-internet art is that like there's no art that isn't internet art because the internet is such a like all-encompassing form for the distribution as well as the creation of art. So like in the past 5-ish years, people have had this idea of like we are like the term internet art isn't as useful anymore because all art is internet art. So that's what we're talking about now. And then your question is the idea of like how much post-internet art is like critical of the post-internet?
Yeah.
Well, I guess critique can happen in a lot of different kinds of ways. So something that I would bring up is that because of the dissemination method that you've spoken about, art is being made that will look good in install shot conditions. There was an article written a few years ago by Michael Sanchez, who's a critic. It's written in Artforum, where he wrote about how the primary mode of dissemination of art these days is on the phone. Your iPhone, as you flip through Tumblr or Contemporary Art Daily or various art aggregation blogs, and he said that he believes that there's a certain kind of art that's being made, painting specifically in the instance I'm going to talk about, that is actually physically, it's relieving to look at when you look at it on the screen, because screens are so bright and the walls around them are so bright, and then there's these paintings that are relatively dim and they're relatively scattered. They're kind of an all-over effect, and it's actually very easy on the eyes. So I think that part of the idea, part of the problem with critiquing that system is that there's just so embedded that where do you even begin to critique? So there's an artist out of Montreal, his name is oh goodness. John Knowles. John Knowles. There's an artist named John Knowles, and he works in kind of varying ways. But his body of work, his painting body of work recently, has involved making these really, really dark canvases out of a lot of different kinds of paints, and they're very difficult to photograph. So he's definitely courting that. He's definitely saying, okay, well, I don't want you to take these install shots, or I don't want you to be easily able to disseminate my work online. Fortunately, he's able to sell it out of a gallery, so that solves one of his problems. But critiquing is hard, and it's the whole armature and everything that you're involved in.
Although I think particularly a strength of the internet in this case is the ability to have call on a larger audience to both submit and receive what is being produced on it. So I'd say the Canadian artist like Jennifer Chan uses sort of the tropes and aesthetics of net art in a way that questions our associations with net artists in the past and such with the net bro aesthetic, and I think there is critique being done, although you can still have although it's being taken to the internet, the sort of the limitations or the expectations of the institutions can still exist, but there's such a wide variety of responses that can come from that just because of the nature of the internet being so available in some cases.
What about projects like the jogging as well? Brad Trammell, and he was one of the founders. We were talking about him just a moment ago. I mean, his work, I feel like the work on the jogging, which is a blog of sort of not real artworks, or they're real artworks that are made to look like they're physical pieces that have been that install shots have been taken of, but they're not necessarily real. They've been aggregated and they've been photoshopped. So what about that? Do you guys think that that's critical work? Critical of net art? Critical of that mode of dissemination?
No, that's a really great question.
Well, one thing I was just thinking about as you were saying that is the jogging website still going?
No, it is finished now.
And so I was sort of wondering, because as far as the internet goes in curating too, right? So how is that shifting? So I guess now Brad Trammell, a lot of it, Instagram is almost where he will go to post those images, and it's sort of shifted. I mean, how many art blogs are there these days, I guess? Well, I think now social media and Instagram is sort of everything is just so instant, I guess, that I almost don't have time or care to scroll through a website. I'd rather just get updates consistently, or I guess as far as curating, have any of you ever been in a show that has only existed online?
Yeah, and I know what recently we've been trying to use mostly Instagram for our collective practice, and it's emphasizing this quantity over quality necessarily, instead of it being about the individual pieces, if you can call the posts that, it's about this sort of maintaining this presence in other people's feeds, so that they're remembering you.
Or branding, and that's sort of a strange situation to be in. Or when we were talking about the community, now the internet kind of shifted your relationship. Obviously, it's much easier to access a much broader art world community, and you can make these sort of connections with people that you would never normally. But you can also sort of imply these connections, so you can say, oh, well, I liked this person, or I shared this article from this other person, to make other people think that you're connected, and then it sort of becomes this weird like with everything with the internet, whether it be artwork or relationships, you're not quite sure how authentic things are. I guess how much of a presence, Ben, how active are you on social media or Facebook? Or obviously Alex, you almost have a whole persona, right? There's some sort of difference between you here and
like
then
focus
you're not speaking in all caps,
for sure.
but, you know.
Yeah, I'm a little hungover today to be doing that. But I think it's important to focus your audience, just like anything. Like Best Buy's ads look like Best Buy's ads, and Pizza's ads look like Pizza's ads. So I think as a visual artist, it's important to focus your brand as well, because then people might get confused if you're making watercolors one day and you're making bronze sculptures the next. And I think that translates to how you communicate to your audience, right? Whether that's you choose to do all caps, you choose to present like a daily piece of art every day, whether that's on Instagram or Twitter. You choose to use Twitter as a tool in which to aid or to augment your practice. Yeah, I think it's
And that's interesting too. I don't know how many artists are out there using Twitter as a medium as well. Jenny Holzer, right? Well, I think almost every day posts a statement, as an artwork. It's kind of interesting.
Kawara does too, kind of ironically.
Even though he's dead.
Yeah, he has a project. He had a project while he was alive called "I Am Still Alive," where he would send a telegraph or a letter or several letters to various people every day saying "I'm still alive." Well, he set up a Twitter account before he died to do the same thing, and the Twitter account is still going even though he has actually passed away. So it's a strange use of the medium.
So like with Tumblr, maybe it's more about, like, even though the Tumblr feed is a thing, you still have this like archive. Like people still tailored their Tumblr pages. I also like talking about Tumblr like it was really the past. People, you tailor your Tumblr page so that it like looks like something, that it matches your aesthetic. But maybe both this sort of emphasis on branding influences our sort of the move towards Instagram and Twitter, where it's more about this sort of like brand presence and like persistent updating, more about the feed than about the blog or the archive.
Yeah. Definitely.
It certainly kind of does away with an idea of curation. I mean, to play on what you were talking about Tumblr, about this, a site that was really good at collecting images. You could post images in a stream that sort of reflected a curatorial idea. Like I would be choosing images that reflect some idea that I wanted to put out there into the world. You don't really choose anymore, or the presentation shifts in an Instagram world. Nobody's going to be looking at just your photos, or they're very seldom going to be looking at just your photos. So it becomes just an aggregate instead of any kind of a curatorial decision.
But then too, you have like Hans-Ulrich Obrist, very famous curator, every day will post a post-it note, and then so he's got this extremely long, illustrious career. But he also now sort of his latest curatorial project is basically just posting other people's phrases that are written on post-it notes that becomes something that you start following, and it's an interesting project. And how so it's weird to think that that's sort of how he's curating now, is just selecting.
But is it curating? I mean, there's a rough selection, but there's definitely not a refinement. Nobody is refining these at the end of the day to say like these are the ones that are all go together, and they come together in kind of an unordered way, and it's constantly building. So with that in mind, actually, maybe Tumblr isn't a curatorial medium at all. I mean, maybe these are all just aggregates.
But then I think another strong thing about like the individual's Tumblr is that the curation falls onto the user, who then can select from perhaps the artists or the galleries or the publications or the businesses who are posting these images, and either they can revolve them or add them to their own likes. And I mean, I know people who, artists or just in general, people who unfollow if a feed disrupts their own personal to themselves on their own daily feed experience. Yeah.
So it's like less curation on the part of the producer and more curation on the part of like a platform for a curation of your own feed.
And then having like a brand, I think that aligns with whatever may be the most acceptable into a large number of individual feeds is something to be preoccupied with.
It's like you're trying to bait people to curate you with your brand. Yeah.
becomes kind of a dangerous, weird situation where you basically, the same way that if you're on Facebook and you follow certain things, you only get the information that you want to be getting. So if you're a Tea Party fan and your newsfeed is just going to become crazy right-wing Republican information, and it just sort of feeds this cycle. Or similarly, your Instagram feed, if you're just following a certain type of artist because that's what you like, I'm not gonna. It might be harder to see influences that might push you in a different direction. So like Oliver and I were talking the other day, and he was saying that he had removed somebody from Instagram because it wasn't inspiring anymore. Like it was just their feed was kind of boring, and it's selfies and whatever. And I thought, that makes sense that you would want a feed that's just, artwork that inspires you. But at the same time, then, you start curating your own influences, which I guess we all do anyways.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's just that you're selecting a certain window that is, of information that comes to you.
But the platforms have adjusted themselves with their own algorithms to encourage people to spread out from their comfort zone. I think with like suggested friends or suggested groups on Facebook, people to follow, suggested likes, and even so, the way that if you like a page, it will leave your feed after a period of time if you don't interact with it. That's all very interesting on the way that the app developers aspect of how they determine how they think you should like something, or what is your personal investment in this decision of yours.
So it's like we moved from like the producer curation to the user curation, and then now to like algorithmic curation.
It's funny
who controls the algorithm.
Yeah.
That's all in a black box somewhere in Google headquarters, so we have no idea what's going on in their minds, what they're planning to do to us there.
Or, I was thinking as far as Instagram goes, who uses Instagram here? Are you guys active when we're talking about Instagram? Yeah, and so when it first came out, it was sort of trusted to be an authentic snapshot of what you were doing at the time. And so there was a hashtag latergram, where if you didn't take that photo at that time, you would say, this is a latergram. And I was thinking about how I never do that anymore, and nobody does, because we've all just sort of understood now that this isn't real life, like that we are constantly, and I do it myself, take however many pictures during the day, and then when I'm bored at home lying on my couch, I'll go through what I took photos of that day and edit it and then pump it out there. So it's sort of, we've almost all agreed to the fact that it's not realistic or authentic.
Yeah, authenticity is a real. There was a real struggle around the idea of authenticity on the internet for many years. We've kind of given it up. You don't really hear about it anymore. People don't really talk about what's authentic on the internet anymore. And I think that's a symptom. That's a symptom of just our total absorption into it. Right? You can't think about what's authentic or not anymore. And I'm sure that Baudrillard is rolling in his grave, but it all just is. It just is what it is now, and we all live in this inside of this system, which is a kind of a closed loop for each of us.
I'm not quite sure what you mean by authentic. What's real? You mean like in a proper time frame, or really take a picture,
or just if it's real at all, right? Like there are Instagram feeds of people who seem to be living these incredible, like wealthy lives, and some of them
just like rich kids on Instagram, right?
Yeah, and then there's also fake rich kids on Instagram.
I mean, myself, I put up like 3D rendered videos, so it doesn't even look like it can be real. It's like blobs of stuff, the whole gamut.
And maybe with authenticity, it's like has to do with what you're used to. So maybe in the earlier days of the internet, it was more, the idea of authenticity was more of a concern because there was this like previous time of less mediation, meaning like less like our experience with reality had less frames interrupting it, as you can call. But like people, like I grew up with the internet mostly, so it's like not really a question that, it's not really the way my brain is built or whatever, to like consider one thing to be authentic or inauthentic.
Well, I mean, I'm an artist here, and I have an in-house tech because my son still makes up money. The assistant that I get on Instagram, I use
you have to do anything you don't want to do. I feel like it's a helpful tool, and it's free.
I'll never look at my phone.
Yeah, but it's I think it's just how you use the tool. So it's not like I don't think anything is particularly essential.
Has it evolved into a business tool?
Some people sell work on Instagram. Yeah, I got friends of mine that actually can sell work, and I've never been able to.
Yeah, I said that I sell.
Yeah.
I get one serious lead on Instagram.
Then it seems worth it. Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, it is your time involved.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I do city scenes, and there are so many city photographers out there. Like New York, amazing photographers. And when they say, that's when they say authentic, they'll say, these are all mine.
Yeah.
Is that real or not?
Well, it's real, but it's not authentic in the way that they probably shot it with like a SLR, a DSLR or whatever. It wasn't shot with their iPhone in that moment, which is the original. Which is the original concept of Instagram was.
What do you think of Beam?
I don't even know Beam. What's Beam?
B-E-N-E. It's
Can you switch? Can we switch?
yeah, right now. Like I said, it's a new app that just you can't even push something and it takes a picture. Trying to be authentic. You don't even know what's being shot out there.
Really?
Look it up. B-E-N-E. It's Casey Neistat.
Its tagline is "Share video honestly."
Whoa! How appropriate. That's great. Good
Good
find.
thing I stopped in on my way back to my
Yeah, that's the bleeding edge of authenticity on YouTube.
Yeah, the simplest and most authentic way to share your experience.
So you can't even, you're not really in control per se. You have to look it up more.
It sounds like an interesting reaction to us being completely in control and being able to edit exactly the image that we want to present. Yeah.
This is what gets taken, this is what gets taken.
It's also kind of weird that we have to force ourselves to take bad pictures, right? Like, once upon a time, you just go to the drugstore and you buy your cheap disposable camera, take a whole roll of them. Now we have to actually recreate that situation whereby we can take bad photos without knowing what they're going to look like.
You know,
See, that's a whole other level of weird inauthenticity.
Yes.
You can't help but hear about an app like that though and kind of feel like I can't imagine it'll do well because we've become obsessed with putting our best foot forward, right? And presenting
I think it's sort of trendy because everybody wants to go back to it.
I think it would definitely have a niche audience, a strong niche following, but I don't think it'll. I could be wrong.
Also, if you could take a hot selfie in that app, then it's like this is an authentic hot selfie.
That's right. It means more. It's got more cultural currency if you're just that sexy.
Yeah, I don't know how it just came out a couple months ago, so I don't know how it's working.
We should checking out.
Yeah, we should have some teenagers on this panel.
Yeah. How old is your son? Where's your son at? Is he around?
No, he's not here. Actually, he's 26. Actually, he's getting his engineering degree, but he likes to tinker. So he actually made a remote control switch to the Beam app, sent it to the guy, so that you could actually have a little control about taking the pictures. So you might see his name on it.
Very cool.
Back to my movies.
Well, good luck, and hopefully you have a great weekend.
Yeah, it's been so hard, so I'm playing.
Nice.
What about taking things offline, guys? What happens when you take your work? Because Alex, your work is sold as objects, as images that are framed. What happens when you take work offline? What is that like?
What do you mean?
Well, when you're creating, are you creating with an eye towards bringing it offline? Are you more?
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant like deleting tweets.
Oh no.
Because I do that when they don't get engagement.
Oh really?
Yeah. If I tweet something and like no one likes it or retweets it, I delete it like a day after.
Do you save them and try them again later?
No, but that's a good idea. I mean, hopefully no one would notice. It's really embarrassing.
But isn't it funny how we live in like, I did an Instagram video yesterday and I have nothing of an internet presence like you do. But anyways, on my phone, this silly little video was glitching and I was like, oh shit. Like, is it just my phone, or does everyone see this stupid video that wasn't working properly? Like, text Oliver, hey man, can you see if my Instagram video, we were so obsessed with, with what we're putting out there.
See,
Isn't it? It's so lame.
No, it's not.
But we've all been there, where you like.
Yeah. But just to get back to your original question, it's like putting work online and then putting it out and existing in real life.
Yeah. Does it stay alive? Does it survive? Do you make the work now in order to show it in the gallery?
Yeah, I make the work for the gallery. I only post it online so that people can engage with it and see what they're getting into. And then people like overseas who don't get to see the gallery in real life can see it and engage with it. That's why I made animations too. It's a different way of engagement. But the work should exist as a print. I feel like they're like immersive landscapes primarily, and I feel like they need to be seen in real life. I don't think.
So does pure internet art does it still exist? Because it once did in the 90s.
Yeah.
And in the early 2000s, there were definitely a lot of people who worked wholly online, completely online. But it seems like a lot of those people have now moved to producing things in real life. I mean, Guthrie Lonergan and Petra Courtright and the Nasty Nets people, surf clubs, all of this stuff that used to happen. People would go and they'd aggregate really weird things on blogs, and they'd make strange collages, and now they're all doing digital paintings, which are definitely meant to be printed out.
I feel like priorities change, right? And I think if they wanted to achieve a certain level of success, then they're going to have to make real life objects so that the gallery can present them. Because it's very difficult to set up a laptop at an art fair and try to convince someone to buy some like virtual thing that is in a platform that may not exist in a few years.
And people who are like successful, who are still relevant from something from like YouTube videos 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago. There's something interesting as well for like the earlier net artists who like have to renew their domain only because they're popular. Like the older, the unsuccessful perhaps net art that maybe we can't see anymore because it didn't call any interest and they lost it, and then the domain is lost and expires. And
or it only works in Internet Explorer 7 or
or like early.
Yeah, we're always like, because like we're just starting out sort of as doing this as being artists, and so we're like always like searching for like new value forms. And for when we were talking about Instagram, the value that we get from Instagram is that like people, this like sort of just like name recognition, this brand thing that we were talking about before, and like that's what we see as valuable. I would never expect to sell anything over. We don't really produce a lot of like this. We've never produced something that you could sell itself. We do performances, installations mostly, or acts, and so all we can produce is things that are the only value that we can really get from our audience is an audience. So
that brings up a whole question of preservation. Like how do you guys keep your spot in history when the work is like visceral? It's
like how does any brand do that? Like I don't know. Like how like Apple. I mean, Apple has such a like tangible presence in your life products, so it needs to be a less tangible brand. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like it's something interesting to consider.
Totally.
I mean, it may be something that I don't know.
Do you think the documentation of your installations and performances could become a tangible object itself, like frame photographs of what you've done, for instance?
Yeah.
You know, just for the sake of brainstorming.
Totally. Yeah.
Or maybe access to the digital like timely documentation of it, like the Instagram account, like the was it Rhizome who made the
art base?
The archive of Amalia Ullman's piece like last or 6 months ago or something.
Yeah, they're dedicated. So there's an organization that's connected to the New Museum in New York called Rhizome.org. And Rhizome is one of their mandates is to collect and to save net art, digital art, and they do that quite effectively. They've been doing it for I think more than 15 years. So there's like a lot of quite old net art that is saved, and they're also dedicated to preserving the technology that you can view it on. So there's some hope, but not everything gets into that archive.
Well, I was just thinking again that our focus like for our content is increasingly turning to narrative, which is like that's sort of a thing that I detect in like other artists' concentration, like creating narrative work as opposed to like the more aesthetically centered work of the post-internet. So when you tell stories, that's just another way to engage with people, and to engage with people in a potentially very memorable way. So maybe that's another way that, like, if we're thinking of like how can we be a thing that's not just, how can an artist be a thing that's not just a flash in a pan? It's like telling stories, because stories stick with people. I don't know.
Even if they don't make any sense at all.
I think that's actually just about it. Timing-wise, if anyone has any questions, maybe we can open that up.
I just want to know, you guys talk about brand and stuff. Is anybody taking advantage of the opportunity the internet provides for anonymity to do stuff? I know 4C Books is looking to bring some line on Twitter, but then that eventually was revealed, and I didn't really follow through. I understand it's been a letdown when it became the end game of it. Is that an ongoing thing?
Well, it's funny. There was one Instagram account called freeze _DE, and it was this account that, and everyone wondered who it was that was putting all of these really funny critiques of the art world basically on it. So it'd be these really funny pictures that you're kind of all just laughing to each other, because anyone outside of the art world wouldn't get the references, or you'd be making fun of certain galleries or certain artists or certain situations. But there were I think Art F City and other arts organizations and news outlets were writing about, like, who is this? Is it this artist? Could it be this person? And it created all of this hype. And then I just checked the other day because I thought, what is that guy or girl up to? And they haven't posted in weeks. And you start looking at the comments of the last image that they posted, and it's people, where are you? Come back to us. Da da da. It's at 10,000 followers now. When it first came out, it was a couple hundred people. So it's, I guess, along those lines, there are people doing anonymous things like that on social media.
But I think it's a lot harder as more and more people begin to access the internet and like make connections, like Facebook. I remember, I don't know, like 2002. When would you have actually put your real name on the internet in 2002? Like, not even making that many purchases or anything. And now your bank account is linked to your phone, which is linked to your Facebook, which is linked to your personal email address. And it, like, Google Maps can see where you're walking at any given moment. So can your mom, because it feeds right back to her phone. I think in some ways, it's maybe more difficult to stay anonymous when you're so connected and people are so connected nearby you. It's maybe something that there will probably be another reaction to it, just all anonymous Instagram accounts.
I think it's definitely a desirable thing. Like, I remember last winter there was sort of art, but there was like the Dufferin Bus had an Instagram account, the Dufferin Mall had an Instagram account, and the Galleria Mall had an Instagram account, and then there were all these like extra fake, like really banal accounts, but people were going crazy about like the Dufferin Bus and Dufferin Mall official, and it was just, I mean, that's, I guess, what the winter does to us. It doesn't get inside and we get weird, but like everyone was talking about, it's like, who's running these accounts? Like, who is that? Is it this person? And it's exciting, and it's sad. But it's exciting.
I think it's difficult as well to break out into a space where you can start to disseminate work if you're anonymous. I mean, we talked about how everything is in really tight, closed circles now, and so if you don't know who this person is, if you're not connected to this other person, then it's very difficult to kind of start to disseminate that work. And to a certain degree, I know that there's been a lot of success with, like the Dufferin Mall or with the Air Show Twitter account that came out last year and revisited this year, the Toronto Air Show, making all sorts of airplane sounds on Twitter, which is pretty good. But one of the funny things about that is that actually we all know the Air Show. We all know the Dufferin Bus. So it's not that it's the person behind it is anonymous, but the thing that it represents isn't. So to a certain degree, it's easier to find that work. If you wanted to be a purely anonymous person working purely anonymously, how would you show the work? How would you? I mean, I guess the closest we have is Banksy, and that's a carefully guarded secret, I suppose. But then, I mean,
He's still a brand.
he's still a brand, so he's been able to even he's got started because everybody knew the work, everybody saw the work everywhere. So it's difficult. Online, I don't know if you could work completely anonymously. You have to come into the real life stage, into the real world somewhere.
And with horse ebooks, it's like the temptation to leverage your audience into something through a career is like that, like capitalist pressure is like seems like it would be hard to resist.
Some point if you're investing that much time in it.
Yeah, you need to get your chips in. You need to cash your chips in at some point.
But it's funny with horse ebooks when it's all predicated on the anonymity, and then it just like fizzles out with that person.
The root of a lot of net art is still 4chan, which is a weird Japanese website where you are anonymous. It's where anonymous the hackers kind of started. So I guess at the root of it all, there is still that kernel of anonymity. If you care to brave the wilds of 4chan, you can find it there.
But there is still a hierarchy within 4chan itself.
Yes.
And using it, although necessarily you can like become just a number, there are people who decide to take that step to organize others to begin like memes and such, to like ignite certain trends.
So there is no perfect anonymity, or at least not for long. Not a long-lived anonymity.
Okay, great. I think that's it. Thanks so much for coming, everyone. Thank you all for joining us up here. Have a great day.
Are you an artist as well? Do you work on it?
I have a weird closet that I've been working on for 4 years now. But it's on Tumblr. I'm up to like 1,800 followers just by hashtagging aggressively. And it's really focused on economic stuff and repurposed old graphs.
Oh, cool.
So I have this like built-in audience.
There's definitely area that,
Hero Burger? I guess above Hero Burger, the VIP lounge, and you get 2 drinks with your pass up there.
Beer. The parking station.
More importantly.
Thanks so much, guys. It was awesome.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, super fun.
I feel like that could have gone on for a couple hours.
Oh yeah.
Especially with the like, hot weather, it's like chill sitting inside.
Yeah, we're fired up.
Cozy, nice.
Yep.
I don't need the lanyard. I can't pretend.
I brought my own lanyard.
I'm into this whole
Alex, this is Rochelle.
yeah, I want to get for coming.
For having this. Fantastic. That makes sense that they just cross it off when you get
Alex, are you going to Jenny's show on Sunday? I think we're
I would give you Scooter when I came in.
Pardon?
I didn't get to see you when you came in. How you doing?
Great.
I was totally one of the guys from
A little bit of
he's coming on the 12th.
Yeah,
So it's really good to get together.
I'd love to go back there. Yeah,
John Baptiste.
Yeah, it's so fun.
You got
Also,
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
he's a bit more active than I am.
Oh, they're seem like funny people.
You're doing it top notch. Yeah, do you mind? Do you mind sending us an email right now?
Thanks so much, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, we'll see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay, bye. We'll see you on the VIP lounge.
I'm going to be so laid back.
Alright, cool. Cheers.
Again, see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks to Rochelle.
But I was just going to say this.
Really made it happen. This is Alan, a friend of ours. Rochelle.
We don't walk your rides.
Alan has a studio in the building where we are at 87 Wade.
Weird thing where some posts are kind of like, I was told to make this reference.
He's the guy. He's the guy.
Did you come up?
I'll use my earbuds.
Yeah, I love that.
It's not very well branded, but
Yeah, so I get all
Thanks again, Alex. Are you sticking around for a bit?
anyway, that's a great idea.
Yeah, you know, I'm happy with our love to host you guys. These two more products.
This is why with
It's going to be people who just sort of accidentally
larger
come onto it too. It's nice people who sort of.
I noticed people were kind of
this and that.
Yeah.
Fridays are pretty slow day for me.
Yeah.
But that's the aesthetic. It's like a lot of scans of 80s economics textbook. Absolutely. Each one is itemized with a whole number.
That's good.
And that's the page from which the original source graph is from. But
I noticed everyone has Ken's already here most of the time. Is that how it's done now?
Yeah.
Because the other artists I used to work with,
I find it
10 or 12 years
I
ago,
like the notion of publishing that with like, and I've noticed for so
Please have a conversation about like I could have definitely gone on. Like, oh, I actually. Well, I mean, and it started 15 minutes before.
probably won't fall
but it's like
for as easily as
way
it was in 1 year.
something that we're working on every year.
Yeah. We had
Last thing came down.
we had that happen last year.
So we're
But it
sounding.
was like
I
someone
had one
else's
friend who I knew really like who had me and everybody else had
That
no
wasn't
idea.
his business. Yeah. But I mean, we have rates and the city is on us about making things. So,
Yeah, they seem very secure.
oh yeah.
Yeah, it's very much the studio.
Where was it?
At Queen West Art Crawl last weekend.
Oh.
And like often blew away.
2 tents took off. Like they apparently lifted up while they were in the tent and flew and landed like 5-10 meters away upside down. And one of them flew with the architect. And then it started raining while all of this woman's art was like on the ground. It started pouring rain.
Yeah, no, being outside of City Hall, we have to follow all the rules because they literally just come out and we're like, that's wrong, that's wrong.
Is that right?
So, yeah. It's hard when you're standing in front of
Yeah, and then I started fucking around with like some of them just look like they're on a wall, right? So
Just like got binoculars out the top windows.
Yeah.
The mayor
No, either he actually should have me today. It might not be him. Sometimes they send like a staff member. Judges are out and about now.
This is just, that's just like,
Yeah, I love politics.
that was
Yeah, it's so good.
needed that so this looks like a thing.
Yeah.
That's dope.
And because it's weird, I just get overdrawn. Like,
Close those strings. No pun intended.
Okay.
See over there?
Okay.
That's the opposite color.
Yeah, you can hold on to that stuff. Yeah, and I think we'll go for like
Curious of the shots.
if you run it for whatever reason. And also, I was told we could turn up the volume a tiny bit. It's kind of quiet.